It was a sound that shattered the peaceful silence of a sleeping university town, a faint, desperate struggle swallowed by the relentless flow of the Dism River, a sound nobody heard, a crime nobody witnessed. And it was in that profound silence that a killer believed he had crafted the perfect, untraceable murder, a flawless vanishing act for a bright young life named Maria Ladenburger. On that cold October night in 2016, in the picturesque city of Freiburg, Germany, a place known for its vibrant student life and sun-drenched vineyards, the very essence of safety was about to be violently ripped away, leaving a community cloaked in a shroud of fear and a family plunged into a nightmare from which they would never awaken. Maria, a 19-year-old medical student with a heart tirelessly devoted to helping others, was riding her bicycle home after an evening spent laughing with friends at a campus party. A scene of such normalcy and youthful joy that its contrast with the horror to come would later strike everyone as particularly cruel. She had chosen the scenic route along the river, a path familiar to every student, a ribbon of asphalt that wound its way under the dim glow of sporadic streetlights, a journey she had taken countless times before. But this time, the shadows held a predator, a man who saw not a human being with dreams and a future, but an opportunity, an object for his violent fantasies. He watched her from the darkness, a specter waiting for the perfect moment to strike, his presence of poison seeping into the crisp night air, his mind already justifying the atrocity he was about to commit, convincing himself of his own cleverness, his own invincibility against the forces of justice that would soon be mobilized. As Maria pedaled, perhaps humming a tune from the party or thinking about her upcoming exams, she was completely unaware of the closing threat, her final moments filled with the innocent thoughts of a life just beginning, a life that would be brutally extinguished on that riverbank. The attack was swift and savage, a burst of unimaginable violence that left her broken, her body then callously dumped into the cold, dark waters of the Dism, a piece of evidence to be disposed of, a secret for the river to keep. Her killer slipped back into the night, vanishing as if he were a ghost, leaving behind no immediate clues, no screaming witnesses, only a chilling void where a vibrant young woman had once been. And he must have felt a twisted sense of triumph, a belief that he had outsmarted an entire city, that he was a criminal mastermind, whose deed would forever remain a mysterious, unsolvable puzzle. But what he didn't account for, what these arrogant criminals never truly understand, is that every single action, no matter how meticulously planned, leaves an echo, an indelible mark on the world. And the hunt for Maria's killer was about to become a testament to relentless, unforgiving justice. The following morning, the discovery of her body sent seismic waves of grief and terror through Freiburg, a university town where such brutality was unimaginable, a place where bicycles leaned unlocked against racks and doors were often left unbolted, an innocence forever lost. The police, facing immense public pressure, began a massive investigation, scouring the area for any fragment of evidence, any thread that could lead them to the monster who had done this. While Maria's family, her parents Clemens and Friederike, and her two younger sisters, were left to grapple with a loss so profound it defied description, their loving, devout Catholic home now a house of mourning, their faith tested by a darkness they could never have anticipated. Maria was more than just a victim. She was a brilliant student on the path to becoming a doctor, a volunteer who dedicated her free time to helping refugees integrate into a new society. A young woman who genuinely believed in the inherent goodness of people, a belief that made her fate all the more tragically ironic. As the days turned into weeks with no solid leads, the case grew cold, and the killer's confidence likely grew, his belief in the perfect crime seemingly validated. But the investigation was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning to pivot towards a clue so small, so seemingly insignificant, that it was almost overlooked, a single piece of biological evidence that would become the key to unlocking the entire mystery. This tiny speck of truth, clinging stubbornly to Maria's clothing, was waiting for its moment to speak, to point an unerring finger at the man who thought he was untouchable, setting the stage for one of the most dramatic and forensically compelling manhunts in recent German history. A story that proves no murder is ever perfect, and that the quest for justice for a soul as pure as Maria's is a force that cannot be stopped. The investigation into Maria Ladenburger's murder was a painstaking process, A slow and methodical excavation of a crime scene that yielded very little at first glance. A puzzle with most of its pieces missing, forcing detectives to rely on the most minute fragments of evidence and the unwavering dedication of a community, refusing to let her memory fade into obscurity. For weeks, the case dominated German headlines, a haunting reminder of vulnerability, with every parent looking at their own children with a renewed sense of fear and every student glancing over their shoulder while walking home at night. The collective psyche of Freiburg deeply wounded by this random act of evil. The police conducted countless interviews, retraced Maria's known movements, and appealed to the public for any information, no matter how trivial it seemed. But the breakthrough wouldn't come from a witness or a confession. It would come from the silent, undeniable language of forensic science, a field where truth cannot be lied into submission. During the meticulous autopsy and examination of Maria's clothing, investigators discovered a crucial piece of evidence: foreign DNA that did not belong to the victim, a biological signature left behind by her attacker, a microscopic calling card that held the entire identity of the killer within its unique genetic code. This discovery was the turning point, the first major crack in the killer's supposedly perfect plan, a definitive proof that he had not been a ghost, that he had, in fact, left a part of himself at the scene, a fundamental mistake that would ultimately lead to his downfall. With the DNA profile in hand, the police began the massive undertaking of comparing it against existing national databases, hoping for a lucky hit, a direct match that would instantly give them a name and a face. But the result was a disappointment. The profile wasn't in the system, meaning their suspect had no prior criminal record that would have required his DNA to be logged. Faced with this setback, the investigation team made a bold and controversial decision. They would employ a revolutionary technique known as forensic genealogy, a method that was gaining traction for solving cold cases, particularly in the United States. By using the suspect's DNA to identify his relatives through public genealogy databases. This technique involved uploading the crime scene DNA to a commercial genealogy website where it was cross-referenced with the millions of genetic profiles submitted by people researching their family histories, creating a vast web of potential familial connections that could, through diligent detective work, be narrowed down to a single individual. It was a digital age manhunt, a process combining cutting-edge science with old-fashioned genealogical research, creating a family tree of the unknown suspect, based solely on the shared DNA of his distant relatives who had voluntarily submitted their own samples for ancestry purposes. Meanwhile, the killer was living his life, likely believing he had gotten away with murder, his secret buried with Maria, his arrogance shielding him from the reality that an invisible net was slowly, inexorably closing in around him, woven from the very strands of his own genetic material. Back in the investigation room, genealogists and detectives worked tirelessly, analyzing the list of genetic matches, building out the branches of the family, eliminating possibilities, and slowly focusing in on a specific lineage that pointed them toward a specific region, and then, astonishingly, to a specific family name. The process was like finding a needle in a haystack, by first identifying all the pieces of straw that were genetically similar to the needle. A monumental task requiring immense precision and patience, but the team was driven by the image of Maria's smiling face and the devastating loss her family had endured. After months of relentless work, the genetic trail led them to a suspect, a man whose family background matched the constructed genealogy, and, most importantly, who lived in the Freiburg area at the time of the murder, a man named Hussein K, a refugee from Afghanistan whose presence in the case would add a complex and politically charged layer to the already heart-wrenching narrative. The irony was cruel and inescapable. Maria, a young woman who had dedicated so much of her time to volunteering and helping migrants like Hussein K integrate and find safety, had allegedly been murdered by someone from the very community she sought to serve. A tragic betrayal that would be weaponized by political groups and would test the very morals Maria herself had lived by. The police now had their prime suspect, but they needed definitive proof to confirm that Hussein K was the source of the DNA found on Maria, so they initiated a covert operation to obtain a sample of his DNA directly from him without arousing his suspicion. a carefully orchestrated plan that would bring the long and arduous investigation to its critical climax. The final act of the hunt for Maria Ladenburger's killer was a masterclass in tactical patience, a high-stakes game of cat and mouse where one wrong move could jeopardize the entire case, requiring investigators to watch and wait for the perfect opportunity to secure the one piece of evidence that would seal his fate forever. Hussein K, now the unwavering focus of the investigation, was placed under constant surveillance, his every movement tracked and analyzed as the police devised a plan to get a fresh sample of his DNA, a sample that could be legally compared to the one recovered from the crime scene. The method they used was straight out of a spy thriller. Detectives shadowed him until he visited a public place, and after he disposed of an item he had personally used, like a coffee cup or a tissue, a specialized forensic officer, disguised as a civilian, would retrieve the discarded item from the trash, an object now considered abandoned property and thus legally accessible for evidence collection without a warrant. It was this seemingly mundane piece of trash, a cup or a napkin touched by Hussein K's lips, that carried the weight of the entire investigation, the final key that would unlock the truth and deliver justice for Maria and her grieving family. The retrieved item was rushed to the lab, where technicians extracted the DNA and ran the comparison, a tense waiting game for everyone involved, knowing that if the profiles matched, they had their killer, but if they didn't, the investigation would be back to square one, with a devastated family and a community still living in fear. When the results came back, they provided the conclusive, irrefutable link the police had been working towards for over a year. The DNA from the discarded item was a perfect match to the DNA found on Maria Ladenburger's body, scientifically proving beyond any reasonable doubt that Hussein K was the man responsible for her brutal murder. With this definitive evidence in hand, the police moved quickly to make an arrest, apprehending Hussein K in a swift and decisive operation that finally brought the man who thought he had planned the perfect crime into custody, his illusion of invincibility shattered by the very science he had naively believed he could evade. During subsequent interrogations, the full horrifying story began to emerge, a tale of opportunistic violence that shattered the killer's initial narrative of a calculated plan. He claimed that he had been intoxicated and had accidentally collided with Maria while she was cycling, an accident that then escalated into a violent sexual assault and ended with him drowning her in the Dism River to eliminate the witness, a story the prosecution would later challenge, arguing the evidence pointed to a far more intentional and sinister ambush. The trial that followed was a national spectacle, a painful but necessary public reckoning that laid bare every detail of the crime, the investigation, and the profound impact of Maria's loss, with her family, particularly her father Clemens, delivering powerful, heart-shattering victim impact statements that spoke not of vengeance, but of the immense irreplaceable void left in their lives, and of their enduring faith and commitment to the values of compassion that Maria had embodied, in a stunning and deeply poignant act of forgiveness that echoed the very Christian principles they had raised Maria with. Clemens Ladenburger publicly stated that he and his family forgave Hussein K for what he had done, a breathtaking display of humanity in the face of unimaginable evil that left the courtroom in tears and sparked a national conversation about grief, justice, and the power of forgiveness. Ultimately, Hussein K was found guilty of murder and sexual assault, and the court, recognizing the particular brutality and cowardice of the crime, sentenced him to life in prison, a verdict that provided a measure of closure but could never truly bring back the light that Maria had represented. The case of Maria Ladenburger stands as a somber landmark, a story of a promising life cut short, a family's incredible strength, and a testament to how modern forensic science can pierce the darkness of even the most seemingly perfect crimes, ensuring that predators who operate under the cloak of darkness can be dragged into the light and held accountable for their actions. It also leaves us with a haunting and complex legacy, a story that forces us to confront difficult questions about safety, trust, and the shocking randomness of violence, while also reminding us of the resilience of the human spirit and the capacity for grace, even in our darkest hours. Maria's memory now lives on not as a victim, but as a symbol of love and service. Her story a powerful warning to every would-be criminal that in today's world, there is no such thing as a perfect murder. Only the inevitable, meticulous and unyielding march of justice. If this deep dive into the meticulous investigation that brought Maria Ladenburger's killer to justice revealed just how fragile a criminal's arrogance can be in the face of modern science, then I know you'll find our next case equally compelling. We are constantly working to bring you the most detailed and impactful true crime documentaries from around the globe. Your engagement is what makes this possible, so if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss what we're uncovering next. I'd also love to know your thoughts on this case. Specifically, what do you think about the revolutionary use of forensic genealogy? Do you believe it's a vital tool for justice, or does it raise privacy concerns for you? Let's have a conversation down in the comments below. I read every single one, and your perspective is incredibly valuable. Thank you for watching, for caring, and for helping us keep the focus on seeking truth and remembering the lives behind the headlines.